Fantasy Fanfiction. Marvel's Hogwarts Wizards. Chapter 11. 5 days later. Jerry held the wand in his hand, pointed at the wooden door of the room a little nervously, and whispered a spell. Allahu hole is open. A weak magical power slowly flowed out of Jerry's body along with Jerry's spell and spiritual power, and then entered the wand along his arm. After being magnified by the wand, it turned into a blue magic ray and shot out, precisely hitting the wooden door. The door is locked. Ka. The wooden door, which was originally locked, opened automatically after a mechanical vibration under the action of Jerry's unlocking spell. It's finally a success. Seeing the successful casting of the unlocking charm, Jerry heaved a long sigh of relief. In fact, 2 days ago, he indirectly activated the function of boosting the brain, and slowly read all the magic knowledge and spells in the 4 magic books, and memorized them in his mind. But just reading and understanding the theoretical knowledge in the magic book does not mean that you can successfully cast the corresponding magic. Although the spells that appear in these books are the most basic and simplest spells. According to Jerry's understanding of combining the contents of the 4 books, the reason why wizards can cast magic is because they have the special blood of wizards in their bodies, and they are born with a magical power called magic power. And magic is based on this power, transforming it through spells and spiritual power, and producing various magical effects. If you want to cast a spell successfully, you must first have magic in your body, which is why muggles and squibs cannot cast magic even if they know the spell. In addition to magic, you'll need a wand. The wand is like an amplifier and stabilizer. It can amplify and stabilize the magic power you output, so that you can cast magic better. If there is no magic wand, it is not impossible to cast magic, but it requires the wizard himself to have strong enough magic power and a strong ability to control magic. And different wands have different magnification and stabilization effects. The more suitable your wand is, the easier it is to reduce the difficulty and increase the power when casting magic. A wand that is not suitable for you will not only make it more difficult to cast spells, but may even be impossible to use at all. In addition to the wand, in order to successfully release a magic, you must have a certain theoretical basis for magic, and have a clear understanding of the magic you want to release. Every word of the mantra must be pronounced clearly and accurately, and the rhythm of chanting the mantra must also fully meet the requirements. Standard spells, elementary, mentioned that a wizard named Barufeo, because of inaccurate pronunciation when chanting the spell, said F instead of S, and found himself lying on the floor on the chest stands a bison. Therefore, if you want to cast the spell correctly, you must practice, and keep practicing. The more you practice, the more you will naturally be able to accurately cast the corresponding spell. Of course, some spells are more difficult. If you want to cast them successfully, you will need some more complicated skills. These skills books may not be mentioned in the book. You need a professional teacher to guide you to learn them slowly. After 2 days of practice, Jerry finally found some skills today, and successfully cast the first spell unlocking spell. With the first success, his practice will become more and more smooth in the future. I believe that it will not be long before he can master all the spells in the first grade textbook. 10 days later, Jerry kept practicing various spells in the room with a wand in his hand. The spells learned in the first grade are basically relatively simple spells that don't consume much mana. Even with the magic power in Jerry's body today, it can be easily used, but the power must be much worse. Among the 4 magic books, or should be said to be 3, the book, Magic Theory, only has theoretical knowledge explanations, and a total of 14 magic spells are recorded, which are Soften, Cut, Unlock, Levitate, Lock, Repair, Transfigure, Restore, Snot, Fire, Repel, Smoke, Wand Light, and Wand Extinguishing. Among them, except for the transformation spell, Jerry is not very good at using it, and the other spells can basically be regarded as proficient. However, among the 14 spells, except for the Cutting Curse and the Fire Curse, which are considered a little offensive, the other spells do not have much offensive effect. And the most important thing is that with his current magic power, the Cutting Curse cast can't even cut the clothes completely, and the Flame Curse can emit a small flame at most, which is similar to a lighter. Originally, Jerry thought that in those few magic books, there would be the kind of body-binding spell recorded, which was the kind of spell that Hermione immobilized Neville in the movie. Because in terms of practicality and combat, the spell actually feels the best. If he knew how to bind the whole body, he would give each of those robbers a all petrification. When he went back, wouldn't it be easy to handle it? It turned out that the spell was not recorded in the first-grade textbook. The body-binding charm might have been something Hermione taught herself from some grimoire in the library, or it might be a spell from a senior textbook. No wonder Ron and Harry looked dazed when they saw Hermione cast that spell. Thinking about it, although the two of them are scumbags, there are a total of more than a dozen spells taught in the first-grade textbooks. It is impossible for them to know nothing about it, and it is already the end of the semester at that time. Unless there was no such spell in the textbook at all, so the two of them showed that they didn't know when they saw Hermione cast it. However, even these spells in the first grade have no offensive power, but they are magical magic after all, and Jerry feels that if they are used well, they may not be unable to produce unexpected effects. But just to be on the safe side, he felt that he needed to experiment with the power of these magic combinations before returning. Similarly, he can also get some little red stars. By the way, his little red stars have all been exhausted. He remembered that it seemed that little wizards could not perform magic outside of school, otherwise they would be monitored by the Ministry of Magic. But it seems that little wizards before entering school are not included in this regulation. In the movie, Hermione seems to have said on the train that she tried to release magic several times at home before school started, and they all succeeded. Therefore, during the period before entering Hogwarts, he was free to cast magic, as long as he was not caught head-on by the Ministry of Magic. Come to think of it, that chance should be very small. There were not many wizards in the first place, and the orphanage he lived in was not in the urban area of London, but in a small town in Surrey, so it was not a big problem to be careful. 10 o'clock in the evening in the small town of Winton, Edward Orphanage. Crookshanks, Dad is going out, don't run around at home. Jerry picked up his wand, put on some black clothes, said something to a long-haired ginger cat lying on the ground, entertaining himself with its big fluffy tail, opened the window, and got out. Jerry's room was on the second floor of the orphanage, but with his skill, the second floor was not a problem at all. He jumped down easily just by using the windowsill on the first floor. In fact, many children are better at climbing than adults, especially Jerry is a child with 8-pack abs, and his strength is not inferior to that of ordinary 17 or 18-year-old boys. The orphanage was already pitch black at 10 o'clock. Jerry walked through the front yard in the dark, quickly climbed over the big iron gate and left the orphanage. I chose to experiment with magic at night to earn little red stars, considering that my actions at night are not easy to be discovered, and many crimes generally occur at night. Fluorescent flickering. Taking out the wand from his arms, Jerry whispered a spell, and the tip of the wand suddenly emitted a bright light, which was as bright as a flashlight. The wand lighting charm is one of the simplest of the 14 spells that Jerry has learned. However, when he was learning this spell, he saw that there is an advanced version of this spell. Once used, the brightness is comparable to that of a small sun, and it is generally used in small worlds to replace the sun. This made him think of Newt's suitcase in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, in his previous life. Maybe the sun in the small world inside the suitcase was made with the advanced spell of this spell. Therefore, Jerry feels that the basic spells he is learning now should not be underestimated. Many subsequent powerful spells may be created on the basis of these low-level spells. The Edward Orphanage is located in the south of the town, which is a relatively remote location. Jerry took a wand to illuminate and walked for nearly 20 minutes before arriving at the center of the town. Unlike the orphanage where all the staff have fallen asleep, there are still many small shops open in the town at 10 o'clock, especially near the bars in the town, and there are many well-dressed men and women coming in and out. In Jerry's impression, crimes are more likely to occur near the bars at midnight, so he has been patrolling around the bars with his wand, and especially turns around those dark alleys with few people. Unfortunately, he has been patrolling until 1 o'clock in the morning, and he has not encountered even a single crime. It is just that when he first entered the town, he encountered an old couple who were walking at night accidentally slipped and fell. It's 2 o'clock, the little red star. Reluctantly, he could only go back to the orphanage to sleep, and planned to attack again the next day. Facts have proved that the world of Harry Potter is still different from the world of Marvel, especially in a small town where life is not stressful. It is really not easy to encounter a crime. Go out at 10 o'clock every night and return at 1 o'clock in the morning. It wasn't until the night before the comeback that Jerry finally encountered a small robbery. It was 11:30, in a dark alley in the small town of Winton. A young white-collar woman who came home late due to overtime was blocked by a strong white man with a fruit knife. And this scene happened to be caught by Jerry, who was patrolling around. However, he did not immediately appear to rescue the white-collar worker, but hid at the exit of the alley, watching the strong man quietly. After he succeeded, he took the stolen money and necklace in one hand and the fruit knife in the other, and ran towards the alley. Flaviv. Taking out his wand, Jerry aimed at a puddle of water at the exit of the alley, and threw a transfiguration charm. The weather in London is rainy and foggy, and water beaches left by rain can often be seen on the ground. Hit by the magical light of the transfiguration curse, the large puddle of water instantly turned into super lubricating oil, and the strong man who fled in a hurry stepped on the puddle of lubricating oil as soon as he left the alley. Ouch! With a slip of his foot, the strong man flew out because of his high speed, and fell hard to the ground. Among the 14 spells that Jerry learned, the transfiguration spell is the most difficult. Other magics generally add certain properties to a certain substance, while the transfiguration spell completely changes one substance into another. Also, it can be distinguished from all spells and listed as a discipline, and its esoteric level can be imagined. However, not all transformations are so difficult in the beginner transfiguration charm. It is mentioned in the book that if you want to increase the success rate of the transformation spell, you should pay attention to a few points during the transformation. First of all, it is easier to transform the same substance, such as turning water into wine and water into oil, which can be easily mastered by young wizards who have just entered the first grade. As a counter-example, if water is turned into stone and steel, it will be extremely difficult. However, converting non-living things into living things and converting living things into non-living things is not too difficult a problem, but that requires some learning about conversion spells. The second is that the smaller the thing, the easier it is to transform successfully, such as transforming a match into a needle, and hair into a thread. Conversely, it would be very difficult to turn a match into a spear, or a telephone pole. Finally, the simpler the structure, the easier it is to transform successfully. For example, turning a mouse into a snuff box and a rabbit into a slipper can be done by a first and second year wizard. For example, if you turn an owl into a telescope, it is very difficult, even many 5th grade wizards cannot do it, let alone change a plane, a cannon, a machine gun, even Dumbledore may not be able to change it. These are still basic, such as more in-depth transfiguration also involves Gamp's transfiguration law, cross-species transfiguration, human transfiguration, etc., so he needs to go to school to learn slowly. Smokey. Taking advantage of the moment when the strong man got up before he fell down, Jerry immediately threw a smoke spell. Immediately, the area around the strong man was enveloped in a puff of smoke, and Jerry rushed into the smoke like a little cheetah. The strong man on the ground was still in a dazed state of being thrown, but he seemed to sense the presence of a figure in front of him, and quickly grabbed the fruit knife that fell on the ground. Get soft fast. However, Jerry's reaction speed was faster, a softening spell was thrown on the fruit knife, and the fruit knife instantly went limp like noodles. Little dragon wagging its tail. After getting rid of the biggest threat to himself, Jerry mercilessly kicked the head of the strong man who was about to stand up with a whip kick with all his strength. Jerry's strength was no worse than that of an ordinary 16 or 17-year-old boy. He kicked the strong man's temple with all his strength, and immediately knocked him out. Under normal circumstances, even if Jerry is proficient in Jeet Kune Do and has 8-pack abs, he is definitely not the opponent of the strong white man in front of him, and the opponent is still holding a knife. In his previous life, Jerry had seen a certain news report that a certain fighting champion met a certain knife-wielding gangster. After a fight, the fighting champion was stabbed to the hospital, and the knife-wielding gangster escaped uninjured. Fighting skills are generally available only when the physical conditions of the two parties are similar. If the conditions are too different, unless you have the mentality of killing the opponent and hit the opponent's vitals with every move, it will be difficult to win. And if one person is empty-handed and the other holds a knife, no matter how good the fighting skills are, it is better to run away. Although it is not impossible to win the white blade with empty hands, it is more likely that the white knife goes in and the red knife goes out. Therefore, at this time, Jerry easily solved a strong man holding a knife with only a few low-level magic that did no direct damage. It can be seen that the effect of using magic as an unconventional power is still very significant. However, it is not denied that Jerry's sneak attack also has a part of the advantage. After kicking the robber unconscious, he didn't leave immediately. Instead, he took out 2 banknotes from the scattered banknotes and put them in his pockets before leaving the scene calmly. It's not his style to do good deeds without expecting anything in return. Although 2 banknotes are not much to him, he has always told himself that it is okay to do good deeds, but there must be rewards. Since he helped the lady get rid of the robber and snatched back the wallet, he had to take out 2 banknotes as a reward, otherwise he was afraid that he would really become a little girl because of earning little red stars and doing good deeds in the future. A Madonna-like figure. That was something he absolutely didn't want to see. After living for more than 40 years, he knows what to do to make his life better. In his new life, he doesn't seek great wealth and power, but he also doesn't want to become a wronged species who only cares for others in the future. A person's life is only 100 years, and sometimes being selfish is not a big mistake. What's more, as long as his strange panel does good deeds, there will be little red stars, and even if he regrets immediately after doing good deeds, there will be no problem. That is to say, if he goes to save the life of another person, there will be a little red star in his account, and if he kills the person after saving, the little red star will not disappear. It's so unintelligent. Not long after Jerry left, the young white-collar woman in the alley poked her head out timidly. Just now she heard screams outside, but out of caution, she didn't come out immediately. At this time, when she saw the strong man who had fainted on the ground not far from the entrance of the alley, she was first surprised and then overjoyed. Approaching slowly, she confirmed that the strong man who robbed her seemed to have passed out. She immediately took back her cash and necklace jewelry, then kicked the strong man twice before leaving with her buttocks twisted in high heels up. She didn't choose to call the police. Since the money and jewelry were brought back, although 2 pieces were missing, it didn't matter. One thing more is worse than one thing less. September 1, 1991. Jerry got up early and prepared all the things he needed to bring to Hogwarts. Today was the first day he went to Hogwarts to start learning magic, and it was also the last day of his 1-month experience period. Countdown to homecoming begins. 10, 9, 8, 7. Watching the countdown to return on the panel, Jerry took a long breath, and then tightly held the wand in his hand. 3, 2, 1, start returning. As the countdown ended, he once again felt the state where the whole world was frozen, and then his eyes went dark, and he lost all consciousness. When he opened his eyes again, he had already returned to the hijacked school bus. At the same time, the arrogant laughter of the 2 robbers and the continuous shooting of bang bang sounded in the ears. Fortunately, the wand followed. Jerry didn't care about the 2 robbers next to him, but immediately looked down at the wand in his right hand. What he was most worried about before was that he would not be able to bring the wand back after returning. Without the assistance of a magic wand, it would be basically impossible for him to cast magic, with a failure rate as high as 99%. Now it's time to see how to deal with these 4 gangsters safely. Gripping his wand tightly, Jerry squinted and scanned the entire interior of the school bus. In fact, before returning, he was already thinking about how to deal with these 4 armed robbers safely. With the help of magic, it is not too difficult to solve the problem of these robbers. He had already experimented last night. But how to ensure that the robbers do not accidentally injure other children in the school bus is the most difficult. Therefore, his plan is to wait and see what happens and see if there is any turning point. If there is no turning point, he will forcefully act. Although it is possible to accidentally injure some people, the first thing to ensure is the safety of myself and my sister. For the rest, he can only say sorry. It would be best if the robbers left the school bus with the stolen money after getting rid of the police car, so he wouldn't have to take any more risks. As for Little Red Star, as long as he does good deeds, he can get it. In the future, when he learns magic well, there will be more opportunities, so there is no need to take risks. Smith, we're out of the way of the cops. The two robbers next to Jerry saw that the last police car was also forced to stop under their crazy shooting, and they laughed and reported to the robber who was pointing a pistol at Teacher Bailey in the middle of the school bus. The robber who pointed the gun at Mrs. Bell should be the leader of the four robbers. Hearing the reports from the two robbers behind him, he turned his head and asked the robber who was controlling the driver, Paul. "Are you there yet?" "Smith, soon." The robber in front looked at the road sign in front of the car and replied with a smile. About 20 minutes later, under the command of the robbers in front, the school bus was parked on the side of a secluded road. "What do we do now? Do we want to kill them all?" The two robbers at the rear of the car walked towards the leader of the robbers named Smith. Jerry raised the wand in his hand immediately upon hearing this. If the robber intends to kill everyone in the car, then he can only risk it. "Idiot, why kill them all? Do you think we didn't die fast enough?" The robber named Smith kicked the proposing robber in the ass. He knew very well that if he just robbed a small bank, it would cause a sensation, but it wasn't too serious. After all, it was only the bank that lost. And the money they robbed was nothing more than a drop in the bucket in the bank. But if a carload of elementary school students are killed, it will definitely cause a sensation in this society. They will become the targets of everyone shouting and beating them, and it is even possible that the country will dispatch troops to deal with them. That's why he scolded his subordinate as a brainless idiot. "Smith, I think it's fine to take one as a hostage just in case. Let the others go, it's a burden to carry." The robber in front obviously understood what the boss was thinking, and made a more pertinent suggestion. Smith thought for a moment, then nodded, and then chose from a carload of children. Seeing this, Teacher Bailey, who was pointed at by Smith, raised her hand tremblingly. "Use me as a hostage, they are still children, once they start crying with you, it's hard to coax them." Teacher Bailey was stuttering, obviously she was also very scared at this time. The driver over there, Paul, sat on the seat and lowered his head a little bit. He still has children, a wife and parents to support. Even though he felt guilty, he was unwilling to make such a move. Well, it makes sense. Obviously, Smith was persuaded by Mrs. Bell's words. If you bring a child, you don't have to worry about the other party's resistance, but if they start crying, it will be very troublesome. After all, they are used as hostages to prevent them from being targeted by the police. It is not good to kill them directly. "Smith, I think that's a great offer." The two robbers at the back looked at Teacher Bailey's fairly regular facial features and uneven figure, and suddenly showed a malicious smile. Teacher Bell trembled when she saw this, but she didn't say anything in the end, and stood up beside Smith honestly. "Hey." Jerry, who had been sitting in the back observing the situation, couldn't help but sighed, and then slowly stood up from his seat. "I think it's most suitable for you to use me as a hostage. My father is the sheriff of Queens, and he may have directed the follow-up pursuit. Moreover, I am just a child, without the slightest ability to resist, and I am very obedient." Teacher Bailey is a very responsible and caring teacher. Jerry doesn't want her to fall into the hands of a few robbers. The point is, he followed the robbers away, so he didn't have to worry about the future, and he could do whatever he wanted, so at this moment, he stood up proactively. "Jerry, what are you talking about? Sit down and let Mr. Paul take you home later." Belle's expression changed immediately when she saw Jerry get up. Jerry is a well-known good student in the school. He is not only among the best in grades, but also excellent in character and learning. He is also a student she likes very much. At this moment, seeing Jerry get up to take himself as a hostage, he was moved and anxious at the same time. On the contrary, when that Smith heard that Jerry turned out to be the son of the sheriff, he immediately turned his head and looked over. Having a sheriff's son as a hostage must have made the police more fearful than an ordinary elementary school teacher, and compared to an adult woman with the ability to resist, a child is obviously safer. "Bring him here." Smith gave instructions to the robbers on the side. "Smith, I think this woman is more suitable." The robber bulged his mouth, apparently he had other ideas. Smith knows his subordinates very well, and he just kicked them up. "I have money, but what woman doesn't have it? Quickly take that sheriff's child with me, we hurry up and get out." Big brother. Aisha watched the robber walking towards her big brother Jerry, and realized that something was wrong, and grabbed Jerry's hand with some fear. Although she is a little middle school and has a lot of nerves, she is not stupid. At this time, she has realized that once the big brother is taken away, something bad may happen. Aisha, Big Brother is going to send these little demons back to hell, and he will be back in a while. You have to listen to Teacher Bailey. Don't worry, Big Brother is a demon lord. Jerry put Aisha's hand down, winked at her, and walked towards the robber. Little fool, be honest with me on the way, or don't blame me for blowing your head off. When getting off the school bus, the robber just kicked Jerry's ass angrily, but he leapt forward to dodge it skillfully. When the robber wanted to make another kick, he was scolded by the boss Smith behind him. After the four robbers took Jerry off the school bus, they blew up all four tires of the school bus with rifles, and then walked into the small woods on the side of the road. Not long after they walked, they came to a black off-road vehicle that had been prepared in advance. It seems that we have already prepared. Jerry sat in the back row of the off-road vehicle and was sandwiched between two strong men and robbers. He sighed inwardly. The off-road vehicle started, and after a few twists and turns in the small woods, it appeared on a very hidden path, and after driving for a while, it entered the main road, submerged in the traffic flow and disappeared. An hour later, in front of a dilapidated warehouse in the suburbs, a black off-road vehicle slowly stopped. The four robbers carried a large bag of dollars robbed from the bank and escorted Jerry into the warehouse. Crack. Jerry looked at the wooden door locked by the robbers, and murmured secretly. It seems that I don't intend to keep alive, so don't blame me. Just after he entered the warehouse, he saw the four robbers taking off their masks at the same time. At that time, he knew that the four robbers might have subconsciously set the same fate for him in their hearts. It's just that the hearts of the four robbers are still filled with the joy of successfully escaping from the hunt and grabbing a lot of money. But when he reacts, it is estimated that it will be his death. As the saying goes, it is better to strike first, and to suffer later. If you don't strike at this time, when will it be? Hearing the laughter of the four robbers outside because of a large bag of dollars, Jerry knew that now was the time when the four robbers were least vigilant, and it was also the best time for him to act. Flaviv. Pulling out his wand stuck in his trousers, Jerry first cast a transfiguration charm on a broken chair leg he found in the house. Turned it into a sharp dagger. With the current level of his transformation curse, this dagger should be able to last for about 10 minutes, which is barely enough. Allahu hole is open. The wand pointed at the locked wooden door, and the door was unlocked. With the wand in his left hand and the dagger in his right, Jerry carefully pushed open the wooden door and lurked outside. The dilapidated warehouse piled up a lot of useless garbage, and it also gave Jerry a lot of bunkers to hide in. In the middle of the warehouse, the four gangsters were happily drinking beer while counting the cash in the big bag, obviously in the happy stage of sorting. Use little red star. Jerry did not cast a spell on the four gangsters, but first turned on the panels, refreshing, function. After going to the town to do good deeds every night, and stopping a robbery in the last night, his little red stars have successfully accumulated to more than 50. There are more than 50 tablets, and the refreshing function can be activated for at least 50 minutes. Why do you need to turn on the refreshing function before the battle? That's because after many experiments, Jerry discovered that this refreshing function is actually to stimulate the potential of his brain in a short period of time and keep his brain in a highly active state. In this state, since it can be used to speed up the learning of magic knowledge, of course it can also be used in battle. When used in studies, one can greatly improve one's comprehension, memory, and analysis abilities, and when used in combat, the highly strengthened brain can be used to open the shackles of the body and liberate the body. This state of using the brain to liberate the body, Jerry calls it Superman form. He had seen a movie called Super Body in his previous life, in which the heroine's body and brain were developed beyond the limit because of a drug. In the end, it became an omniscient and omnipotent existence like a god. Of course, Jerry's superhuman state is not that exaggerated, but it can also allow his body to be nearly 100% liberated under the control of the brain. We all know that it is difficult for ordinary people who have not been trained to coordinate their muscles and exert their body strength to the extreme. But those martial artists who have undergone long-term training can use the same body to erupt with greater strength through subtle control of muscles. Jerry's current superhuman state is like transforming from an amateur martial arts enthusiast to a master-level martial artist in an instant. The body is still this body, but at this time in the Superman state, both his strength and speed are much stronger than normal. Coupled with a high-end brain, his 5 senses have also been improved. With the cooperation, his combat effectiveness can even soar several levels. However, this state is not without side effects, and the longer it is turned on, the greater the side effects. The first is the brain. After stopping the function of boosting the brain, his brain will become very sluggish due to the overdraft potential, and he especially wants to sleep. If it is used for too long, the overdraft is serious, and it will even go directly into a deep sleep state, just like the last time he read for 4 hours continuously. And if the body uses the enhanced brain to release the superhuman state after turning on the boosting and refreshing function, and performs body movements beyond the routine, then the body muscles will become abnormally sore afterwards, and it will take a period of rest to relieve it. Excessive use, he guessed that there may be a large area of muscle strain after the event. So the opening of this superhuman form is either to make a quick decision as much as possible, or to make sure that he is in a completely safe environment when the end is over. Otherwise, it would be dangerous. The smoke screen is lingering. Raising the wand in his hand, he pointed at the 4 people who were counting the money, and a beam of magic light shot out, and the entire center of the warehouse was suddenly enveloped in a puff of smoke. Smoke bombs. No, those policemen are chasing you. When he noticed smoke suddenly rising from his side, the robber leader Smith's first reaction was to be found by the police. So in a hurry, he asked his subordinates to pick up the rifles placed beside them, and started shooting towards the warehouse door and windows, while retreating towards the interior of the warehouse. At this time, Jerry also kicked his legs, and rushed towards the 4 robbers shrouded in smoke like a cheetah. In the Superman state, Jerry's speed was very fast, comparable to those of world-class sprinters. In less than 3 seconds, he crossed a distance of nearly 20 meters and came to the first gangster in the smoke screen. The gangster was none other than the brawny guy who got off the school bus and tried to kick his ass. It's not too late for a gentleman to take revenge for 10 years, but it's never too late for a villain to take revenge. Obviously, Jerry is not a gentleman. Jumping up, the dagger in his hand slashed across the strong man's neck. Stab. Blood gushed out, and the strong man subconsciously covered his neck, wanting to exhale, but found that his originally strong body had become weak due to blood loss. Perhaps aware of the situation behind, the other 3 robbers held guns at the same time and turned around. Get soft fast. Raising his wand in his left hand, Jerry cast a softening spell on the rifle of the robber furthest from him. Actually, it's better time to throw a transformation spell at this time, but with his current level of magic, it's okay to transform a small dagger, but there is a high probability that he will not succeed in transforming the entire rifle. And the softening spell can make the rifle unable to shoot normally as long as it softens the barrel of the rifle. Go you. While throwing the softening spell, his right hand was not idle, and he threw the dagger directly in the direction of another gangster who was closest to him. Because he was in a Superman state, the dagger he threw was fast and accurate, comparable to those masters of hidden weapons in movies. What? With a scream, the dagger was precisely inserted into the robber's right eye frame, deep into the brain. At this time, Jerry's 6th sense also began to frantically warn him. Because the robber leader who was not far from him had already raised his rifle and aimed it at his head. His legs exerted strength in an instant, and he retreated with a sliding step. Relying on the advantage of his short body, when he successfully shot the first bullet in the robber's head, he retreated dangerously to the place where he had killed him and hadn't fallen to the ground. Behind the first strong man. Fight back at full speed. Jerry pointed the wand in his left hand at the back of the first strong man. With years of experience in playing Angry Birds in his previous life, coupled with the calibration of his super brain at this time, he burst out all his magic power and cast a repelling spell. The magic light shot down the magic wand on the back of the first strong man. With a string of blood gushing from his neck, the first strong man immediately turned into a big red bird, smashed hard on the body of the robber leader. It was the first time for Smith to experience what it was like to be hit by a volley from a strong man who weighed nearly 200 pounds. As a result, he was directly knocked to the ground, then knocked his head on the ground and passed out from serious injuries. Putting away his wand, Jerry rushed towards the robber who was furthest away from him at full speed without saying a word. The repelling curse just now almost exhausted all his few magic powers, and the last robber could only get close to him. At this time, the last robber was still in a state of bewilderment. What's the situation? First there was a smoke bomb, and after a burst of shooting, the police were not found, but the brother behind him was wiped on the neck by a small man first. Just as he was about to shoot at the blurry figure in the smoke, his rifle actually softened like noodles. What the hell? When he came back to his senses, another brother was stabbed in the eye by a dagger, the eldest brother was knocked down to the ground, and the little man in the smoke screen rushed towards him. When he got closer and took a closer look, it turned out to be the little brown-haired boy who was taken off the school bus by them. The robbers were in a daze, but Jerry wasn't in a daze. Relying on his Superman status bonus, he quickly rushed to the last robber. And the last robber also reacted at this time. If he didn't fight back, he might follow in the footsteps of the other three. So the robber immediately threw away the useless rifle in his hand, and raised his hand to reach for the pistol in his waist. Jerry couldn't let the other party draw a gun, so he jumped up and pushed a strong knee between the legs of the last robber. Seeing this, the robber stared at him immediately. He didn't dare to draw his gun, and hurriedly shielded his little brother with both hands. But he somewhat misjudged Jerry's strength. At this time, Jerry in the Superman state is weaker than the robber in terms of strength. In addition, the knee was hit with all his strength. Although the robber returned his hands in time to block it, he was still hit by the powerful force. On the balls. He bowed his body like a prawn, and at the same time he took a deep breath, obviously not feeling well. But Jerry didn't stop at the knee after he succeeded. Under the command of the super powerful brain, his arms actually supported the robber's shoulders, and his whole body flew into the air, appearing above the robber's head. The legs wrapped around the robber's neck like a python, and the muscles of the whole body exerted force at the same time, just like twisting a bottle cap, so hard. Crack! The head of the last robber suddenly turned 180 degrees, and he couldn't die anymore. Turning over and jumping down, after looking around to make sure there was no danger, Jerry immediately released the Superman state and turned off the refreshing function. Hiss, this is sour. In just 2 or 3 minutes of fighting, the burden on the brain was okay, but I just felt dizzy for a while, and then returned to normal. But maybe the exercise intensity in these 2 or 3 minutes was too high, causing his muscles to relax for a moment, as if he hadn't run for many years and suddenly ran 5 kilometers. It still feels like waking up the next morning after running. But to be honest, the experience in the Superman state is still very good. If it was said that his fighting skills were probably at an amateur level before he opened it, then his fighting skills rose to the top level in an instant after he opened it. After resting for a while to recover his body, Jerry came to the robber who had been stabbed to death with a dagger, pulled out his transformed dagger, and then walked to the leader of the robber named Smith who was knocked out. Without the slightest hesitation, he picked up the dagger and stabbed it into the chest of the robber leader. Cutting the weeds without eradicating the roots, the spring breeze blows and regenerates. He is not so soft-hearted when facing these robbers who obviously have more than one life under their hands. Besides, the leader of the robbers probably saw him in the smoke screen just now, so he must not be allowed to stay. Although it was the first time to kill someone, Jerry didn't feel too uncomfortable other than feeling a little disgusted. Maybe it was because he had already died once before, and he was hit by a large truck. So for death, he is not as afraid as he imagined. Sure enough, it's not the same level, this one is worth it. Opening the strange panel, Jerry found that the number of his little red stars had suddenly increased to 2,000, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. 2,000 little red stars, that's enough for the amount he accumulated from being a good person and doing good deeds in the past 2 or 3 years. But this time, he earned it in one go. It seems that the unskilled good deeds of helping take out the garbage and helping the old lady cross the road are not the slightest difference from killing 4 robbers who robbed banks with guns and hijacked school buses. Although he earned 2,000 little red star points, Jerry didn't immediately enter the small world of Harry Potter. Because every time you come out of the small world, there will be a cooling period. Even if there are enough small red stars during the cooling period, you cannot enter again. And after the first experience period, if he wanted to enter the small world, he would need to consume 100 little red stars every day. 2,000 little red stars seemed like a lot, but in fact it was only 20 days. Besides, when he was studying magic at Hogwarts, the acceleration function of little red star must also be indispensable. Therefore, what he considered later was how to earn more little red stars, so that he could use them later. After closing the strange panel, Jerry slowly came to the center of the warehouse. At this time, on the table in the middle of the warehouse, apart from bottles of beer, there was a large bag of cash banknotes estimated to be worth $1 million. Because of the battle just now, many banknotes in the bag were scattered on the ground. Jerry picked up 8 or 9 of them and stuffed them into his pocket, muttering, "Help you get back millions of dollars, 700 or 800 is not too much, just in time to buy Elsa her favorite ice and snow princess doll. You know, Jerry is only an 11-year-old kid in this world, and his father doesn't give him much pocket money. Usually he just gets a little from some classmates who like to make things happen. He is very good at controlling violence with violence, but he is only a primary school student, and he doesn't have much in his hands. $700 or $800 is not much, and the bank will not go to war for these few $100. Okay, now we are waiting for the rescue of the police." Feeling that the mana had recovered a bit, he used the restoration curse to turn the dagger back into a bench leg, and then returned to the room where he was imprisoned before, locked the wooden door again with a locking spell, and began to lie on the bed in the room with his eyes closed. Stand up. By the way, those policemen can't find this place, right? Probably not. After all, the burst of gunfire just now was quite loud. In fact, not long after Jerry was lying on the bed, a man wearing a gold and red mechanical armor appeared above the warehouse. The time went back to more than an hour ago. Inside Tony Stark's oversized mansion. "Sir, there was a bank robbery in Queens. The robber hijacked a school bus full of elementary school students and has escaped from the police." Tony, who was studying the Mark V suitcase-style convenient armor, heard Jarvis report, put down the blueprint in his hand, and slowly walked towards the armor-wearing platform. Just go out to relax and inspire some inspiration. Since he took the initiative to expose his identity a few days ago, in order to deal with emergencies, he is trying to create a more portable armor, but it is not an easy task to reduce such a large armor to the size of a suitcase. Standing on the armor platform, under the control of the artificial intelligence Jarvis, the Mark IV armor quickly covered Tony's body. The Mark III was severely damaged in the previous battle against the Iron King and was temporarily unusable, so Tony created the Mark IV as a replacement. The functions of Mark IV and Mark III are basically the same, but the appearance has been slightly adjusted. After activating the thrusters on the armor, Tony drove the Mark IV armor, at a speed not lower than that of a fighter jet, and chased after the robbers in the direction where they fled. "Jarvis, call all the surveillance cameras and analyze the possible escape routes of the robbers." In the Mark IV armor, Tony gave instructions to the artificial intelligence Jarvis. "Yes, sir." As an artificial intelligence, Jarvis was quite efficient, and quickly analyzed and locked the approximate route of the school bus after it escaped from the police car through various monitoring data. After some high-speed flight, under the navigation of Jarvis, it didn't take long for Tony to find the school bus with a blown tire and the teachers and students in the school bus. After learning that the 4 robbers took a young boy as a hostage into the grove, he used tire marks in the grove and various monitoring on the road to confirm the robbers' vehicle en route again, and successfully found the warehouse where the robbers were hiding. Compared with the police system relying on manpower to monitor and arrest bit by bit, the speed of artificial intelligence Jarvis is obviously much faster. Scan the structure of the warehouse and determine the number of humans inside. Because the robbers were hostages, Tony didn't immediately rush in wearing the armor and shoot them out with a few palm shots. Instead, he used the advanced scanning system in the armor to scan the entire warehouse. "Sir, there are 5 people in the warehouse, 4 adult human males and 1 human child. However, now the 4 adult human males have no signs of life." "What?" Hearing Jarvis' report, Tony had a look of surprise on his face. Boom! A palm cannon opened the door, and Tony walked into the warehouse wearing a battle armor. "Who did this?" Blood, corpses, and US dollars were scattered all over the place, and needles could be heard quietly in the warehouse. It was obvious that someone had found these robbers before him and killed them all. Oh, the police came here so quickly, which is a bit efficient. Lying on the bed, closing his eyes and resting his mind, Jerry immediately turned over when he heard the loud noise coming from outside. Does this seem unusual? An 11-year-old boy was hijacked here by 4 ferocious robbers, but he was not afraid at all and had a calm expression on his face, which seemed too unreasonable. After thinking for a while, Jerry took out his wand, and said to himself, "The flow is endless." A faint magical light shot on his face, and immediately 2 lines of snot flowed down. This is the snot curse, a spell that can make the snot of the caster flow continuously. Because Jerry specially reduced the amount of magic power when casting the spell, the effect is much weaker. Withdrawing his wand, he rubbed his eyes vigorously again, making the eye sockets turn red, as if he had cried, and his expression was filled with fear and terror. Perfect, a normally hijacked and terrified little boy makes his debut. After a while, the wooden door was violently knocked open, and a tall figure in battle armor walked into the room. Iron Man. At this time, Jerry, who was full of snot, looked at the person and couldn't help but exclaim. He thought it was the police who found here, but he didn't expect Iron Man to come. "Oh, yes, it's me, the Super Iron Man, so don't worry, you're safe, come here, I'll take you home." Hearing the comforting voice from the battle armor, Jerry froze for a moment, then wiped his nose, pretending to be naive and said, "Iron Man, that's so cool." "Yes, very cool, as long as you are obedient, I can consider giving you a small model." Tony didn't take Jerry through the main entrance of the warehouse full of corpses and blood, but raised his hand, directly shot through the wall of the room with the palm cannon, and walked out of the warehouse. "Jarvis, contact the police who are still looking for the robbers, and send them the address here and all the records from when we entered to when we left." After ordering Jarvis, Tony picked up Jerry and flew towards the direction of the school bus at low altitude. "What's your name?" "Jerry. Did you hear any strange noises in the room just now?" "Just some gunshots and shouting. Screaming." "Yes, idiot. Okay, needless to say, forget those bad words. Are you really Iron Man? Replacement is fake. Is it true that you said you would give me a set of models?" "Of course, it will be delivered to your door tomorrow morning." In this way, Jerry may play a normal kid, chatting with Tony without saying a word. "Looks like I have to find time to get a broomstick and bring it here." Seeing Tony flying freely in the air in his battle armor, Jerry couldn't help showing envy on his face. People with a free heart all have a dream of flying, especially the kind of flying that is controlled by themselves and freely in the air, and Jerry is no exception. Fortunately, wizards also have their own unique ways of flying. The easiest and most convenient way to fly is a broomstick. An ordinary broomstick, such as the Nimbus 1000, has a speed of about 100 miles per hour, which is equivalent to about 160 kilometers per hour. Better flying broomsticks can reach more than 200 kilometers per hour, such as the Nimbus 2000, and the faster firebolt behind it. When the strength is strong, you can even learn the flying spell and fly as a white light without borrowing any other magical tools. Of course, whether it is a broomstick or a flying spell, its flying speed is definitely not as fast as Tony's steel suit. After all, he heard from his colleagues in his previous life that Tony's steel suit can reach supersonic speed. However, wizards only use broomsticks for short-distance flying. For long-distance flying, they can use apparition, portkeys, and flow powder to reach their destination in an instant. In order to take care of Jerry's safety, Tony didn't fly very fast. It took about an hour to fly to the place where the school bus stopped before. At this time, the location of the school bus has been surrounded by a large number of police officers. When Tony found the school bus, he sent the location of the school bus to the local police station. "Jerry, oh, I'm glad you're okay." Almost all the students were sent home under the organization of the police. Only teacher Bailey insisted on staying and waiting for the result of the rescue because she was worried about Jerry's safety. Although Belle is young, only in her 20s, she is a very responsible teacher. On the school bus at that time, she stood up to protect the students and voluntarily became a hostage, which could be seen. And Jerry, as her student, replaced her as a hostage. If she can't confirm Jerry's safety, she will really feel guilty for the rest of her life. Ms. Bailey, I'm fine. I'm fine. As soon as Jerry landed, he was hugged and kissed tightly by the excited Mrs. Bell, and he was stunned for a moment, especially Mrs. Bell's heart is still very broad, which made him feel a little bit I'm sorry. Sure enough, children's bodies can always enjoy some special benefits sometimes. Jerry, Jerry. At this time, a familiar voice came from the front. Jerry looked up and saw that it was Aisha, who jumped out of a police car with her magic bubble gun, screaming and running towards him. Okay, I'll leave this child to you, I'll go first. Seeing that there were already policemen coming towards him, Tony said hello and immediately turned on the armor and took off. He didn't want to waste his precious time chatting with the police. He happened to come out this trip, and he also had a new inspiration, so he needed to go back quickly to verify it. Thank you, don't forget the model you said. Jerry waved goodbye to Iron Man, who flew into the air and reminded him of the model he had promised. Jarvis, I'm a dignified Tony Stark. In the eyes of children outside, is my image that bad? Tony was repeatedly reminded by Jerry that he didn't trust him very much, which hurt his self-esteem. Sir, you just sometimes have a bad memory for such things. Jarvis replied tactfully. That's right, then now you control the robotic arm in the laboratory, make a model armor of the same proportion for the boy just now according to his height, and then ask Miss Potts to send it to him tomorrow morning. Yes, sir. Seeing Tony Stark disappear completely while driving the armor, Jerry returned to his normal state. Jerry, did you send those demons back to hell? Aisha ran to Jerry and asked excitedly. Of course, as a demon lord, what I'm best at is sending them to hell. Jerry smiled and patted Aisha's head when he heard this. Aisha, why are you here alone, Dad? Sheriff Haas just received the news, thought you were still at the warehouse, and led the team to the warehouse himself. At this time, Mrs. Bailey, who had already let go of Jerry, explained. It seems that when Iron Man was saving himself just now, he had sent the location of the warehouse to the police station. But it doesn't matter, he paid special attention during the battle just now, and there shouldn't be any traces of him killing a few gangsters. 3 of the gangsters died under the dagger, and the dagger, the murder weapon, had already been restored to a bench leg by him, and the last gangster died under his legs without leaving any fingerprints. He also paid special attention during the fight, not getting blood on his body. In fact, there is nothing wrong with leaving fingerprints. He was taken away from the school bus by 4 gangsters, and all the way to the warehouse. It is impossible that there was no physical contact. The most important thing is that no one would think that an 11-year-old boy with good character and academics could kill 4 vicious gunmen without injury while being locked in a room. Mr. Bell, I'm a little tired, let's go back to the car and rest for a while. The sequelae of just turning on the Superman state have not fully recovered. Instead of standing here, it is better to find a place to rest for a while. Okay, I'll take you to rest in your father's car. Teacher Bailey nodded quickly, and pulled Elsa and Jerry, who were bouncing around, into the car together. As for the police officers who surrounded him just now, Jerry also knew most of them. They were basically his father's colleagues. Uncle's sister greeted them, which attracted a burst of praise. His previous behavior on the school bus has spread among the police officers, and now all the police officers will praise Jerry when they see Jerry. Some old police officers with children, when they see Jerry, they will think of those brats in their own family for no reason. In contrast, they also let out a long sigh. A round of introversion among children of the same age, Jerry can be called the number 1 in Queens. At midnight, at 12 o'clock, in a residential building in Queens. Jerry pressed the alarm clock that went off and slowly sat up from the bed. About an hour after returning to the school bus, his father Haas in this world hurried back when he heard that Jerry had been sent back by Iron Man. The 4 robbers were killed, and almost all the cash in the bank was recovered, so the follow-up matters were not so important. So Sheriff Haas took Jerry and Aisha, and invited Mrs. Bailey to find a high-end restaurant in Queens, and spent a lot of money to celebrate that Jerry was not injured. Among them, Jerry made indirect remarks, and learned from Haas that the police station did not suspect him, but just thought it was some unsung hero with extraordinary skills, who bravely killed 4 robbers for a righteous cause, then dealt with the traces and left. Of course, this kind of private behavior is not advocated by the police station, and all the traces can be handled so cleanly. Now the police station has reason to believe that this unsung hero may not be so simple. Getting up and getting dressed, wearing a baseball cap, Jerry opened the door carefully, then walked through the living room, quickly left the room with his wand, and came to the elevator of the building. Starting today, he decided to set aside 2 or 3 hours every night to earn Little Red Star. Little Red Star can be said to be his most important resource now. To go to the small world needs to consume Little Red Star, to speed up learning magic requires Little Red Star, and to activate Superman state also needs Little Red Star. And the source of the Little Red Stars is to do good deeds, especially to prevent crimes. The bigger the crime, the more Little Red Stars you can get after stopping it. This has been well proved during the day. Lowering the baseball cap on his head, Jerry carefully avoided the building's cameras and security guards and came to the first floor. This is not the end of the 20th century in the world of Harry Potter. In a highly technologically advanced world like Marvel, monitoring facilities can be said to be all over the streets. If he doesn't want to be discovered by the police or the Shield, which specializes in special incidents, he must be more careful. The main reason is that he hasn't learned the illusion spell yet, otherwise he wouldn't have to be so careful. Walking on the streets of Queens, Jerry didn't immediately go to areas with high crime rates, but skillfully walked to a shop on a certain street. Lena's Magic House. This is a store that specializes in selling various fairy tale costumes and props to children. It is also Elsa's favorite. Elsa bought several sets of Ice Queen suits and various magic wands from this store. Why is Jerry coming to this store so late? Of course it was because he needed a suit of his own shirt. In reality, there will be no weird phenomena like Superman. Only a pair of glasses can make others unrecognizable. In order not to be recognized by others in the process of earning a Little Red Star, he needs to have a distinctive battle robe that can hide his appearance like all superheroes. What better attire for a serious wizard than wizard robes? Coincidentally, as far as Jerry knows, there are several wizard robes of different colors and styles for sale in this, Lena's Magic House. Allahu hole is open. With a finger of the wand, the locked door of the store was instantly opened by the mysterious magical power contained in the unlocking curse. To be honest, if it was only in the ordinary world, Jerry could become the world's top thief with just this unlocking spell, and live a chic life without worrying about food and clothing. It's a pity, this is Marvel, the unlocking spell can't stop the purple sweet potato essence. He opened the door and walked into the store. After searching, Jerry appeared in front of the cash register wearing a black wizard hat, a black mask with only eyes exposed, and a dark loose wizard robe. He took out $200 bills from his pocket, put them on the table, turned around and left. He did not choose to spend money to buy it openly, but chose this way, mainly because he was afraid that his purchase record would be found through the style of the clothes. Although he is a wizard, he is not a backward-minded wizard born and raised in the wizarding world, so he never underestimates the power of technology in this world. In particular, this is the Marvel Universe where some technologies are far beyond modern times. In fact, his Hogwarts school uniform was the best battle robe, but when he returned, he was afraid that the robbers would find something strange, so he only brought back a necessary wand. Closing the door of the shop, Jerry walked in the darkness in a dark wizard robe, heading towards areas with high crime rates. Jerry's father, whose full name is Hoss Witt, is a sheriff of the Queens Police Department, and his daily task is to maintain law and order in Queens. So is the son of a sheriff. As long as he is a little careful, he still has some impressions of where crime often occurs in Queens. In fact, the security situation in Queens is relatively good, and there have been no major problems. There are only a few major cases like this bank robbery. Once he heard his father Hoss chatting with his colleagues about the security situation in New York. It has been said that the current highest crime rate is a slum in Manhattan called Hell's Kitchen. Although there are only 8 streets there, more crimes occur every day than in the entire New York City combined. However, Jerry does not plan to go there to earn a Little Red Star yet. First of all, it belongs to the Manhattan area, and it is a bit far away from him. There is no suitable means of transportation, and it is quite inconvenient to go back and forth. Secondly, he has only been exposed to magic for a short time now, and the spells he knows are all auxiliary. Although he can use it in a superhuman state, there are also not small side effects. To be honest, going to a place like Hell's Kitchen is quite dangerous. There is no need to take risks at this stage, and it will not be too late to go when the strength is strong in the future. Hey, this is a good start. Jerry hadn't walked far from Lena's magic house when he found something unusual in a small 24-hour supermarket on the street. In fact, it is a small supermarket, but Jerry thinks it would be more appropriate to call it a small shop. At this time, in the small supermarket, a black young man dressed in hip-hop was pointing a pistol at the owner of the small supermarket, an old Chinese woman who was estimated to be close to 60 years old. "Hurry up, you yellow-skinned ghost." The old woman was full of anger, but she didn't dare to resist. She'd put all the turnover of today's cashier in the small supermarket into a small bag and put it on the desk of the cashier. The black young man was obviously a habitual offender, and he didn't even wear a hood on his face, because he knew that as long as the object of robbery was not a white person, generally the problem would not be too big. In particular, the number of robberies he robs each time is not high. These Chinese bosses may not necessarily call the police, and even if the police report, the amount involved is not high, most of the police will deal with it, and they will not try too hard. Some people are like this. They dare not resist those who have hurt them, but they dare to bully those who have been hurt the same as themselves, and they still feel that it is right. However, just as the black youth picked up the bag on the table, which contained scattered bags worth thousands of dollars, and was about to leave, a short figure blocked the door of the small supermarket. "Get out of the way, little fool, or I'll stick your head in your ass." Facing a child who was obviously wearing a strange black wizard robe and playing house with a mask, the black youth was not polite, and immediately threatened loudly. Unfortunately, the child in the black wizard robe didn't seem to be frightened, but replied coldly without any panic. "Please put down the bag in your hand. I think you want to court death." Although the black youth didn't dare to shoot and kill people, it is of course no problem to teach the other party a lesson. So he put the money bag in his left hand into his pocket, then raised his hand and pushed it forward vigorously. He wanted to push the little guy who blocked the door to the ground, and then kicked him hard a few times to let him know the dangers of society, and let him know that the guy who hasn't even grown his hair should stop meddling in his own business. "Don't hurt the child," the old woman at the counter exclaimed when she saw this. "Hee hee." Jerry watched the black young man push his hand, and without dodging, he quickly raised his hand and accurately grasped the other's middle finger, and then broke it hard. "What?" The black young man let out a scream, and immediately raised the pistol he had been holding in his right hand, and was about to shoot in Jerry's direction. "Get soft fast." Jerry had expected it, and raised his wand first and threw a softening spell. "Walter." The black youth looked at the pistol in his right hand that was as soft as dough, and made an unbelievable sound. "Your feet." Without the Superman state, Jerry's strength is not as strong as the opponent's, so naturally he has to attack the opponent's vital points. The black youth, who didn't have time to react because the pistol became soft, immediately threw away the pistol and knelt down on the ground, covering his balls. Let go of the young man's fingers, and Jerry skillfully struck the neck of the black young man kneeling on the ground with a very silky hand knife, knocking him unconscious. The Superman state consumes the little red star, and there will be side effects afterwards, so he thinks it is better not to open it if it is not necessary. "Oh, my God." Seeing that Jerry knocked down the robbing black youth to the ground, the old woman couldn't help but exclaimed in Chinese. "Grandma, this is your money." Jerry took out the money bag from the black young man's arms and threw it on the counter, then searched through the black young man's pockets, found about dozens of dollars and put them in his own pocket. "These are my rewards, Grandma, you can call the police and arrest this robber." Okay, kid, thank you." Seeing the strange child in wizard robes turn away, the old woman was taken aback for a moment and immediately thanked him loudly. But when she came back to her senses, she realized that when the little boy in wizard robes talked to her just now, he used very fluent and natural Chinese. Could it be that this little boy is from China like her? Leaving that street, Jerry wore a pitch-black wizard robe and walked along some deserted paths to areas with relatively high crime rates nearby. He just spoke Chinese with that Chinese grandma, but he did it on purpose. He needs to earn a little red star to improve his strength, and he will definitely participate in more and more incidents to prevent crimes and disasters in the future, and as his strength improves, these incidents will definitely become bigger and bigger. Sooner or later, he will enter the public, the police, the government, and even the shield. At that time, if someone investigates him carefully again, they will find out that this wizard who can use magical magic, the first time he does something good in public, he speaks fluent and authentic Chinese. People will always believe the answers they have worked so hard to find. The guy who has been speaking in English, wearing a wizard robe, a wizard hat, holding a magic wand, and hiding under the mask, exposed his true identity because of his language when he had no experience in the first operation. Therefore, his real identity is very likely to be a Chinese kid living in New York. You see, this is a perfect way to distract some guys who want to know his true identity. Jerry thinks it is very important to hide his identity, because he is not alone, he has a father who loves him, and a lovely sister. He will be very powerful in the future, but his family cannot be as powerful as him. Although the two of them had no blood relationship with his body, after all, they had lived together for 11 years, so they could be regarded as his only two real relatives in this world. Speaking of which, their family of 3 is kind of weird. 3 people with 3 surnames, his name is Jerry Carmen, his sister's name is Aisha Hathaway, and his father's name is Haswit. However, although Jerry has no real blood relationship with the two, Elsa and Haas are serious father and daughter. It's just that Aisha's mother passed away due to physical reasons not long after Aisha was born. In order to commemorate his deceased wife, Haas gave his daughter his mother's surname. As for Jerry, his situation is even worse. His parents disappeared when he was born, before the full moon, and no news has been found until now. Haas and his father had a very close relationship. After Jerry's parents disappeared, he took the initiative to take him over and raise him as his own son. This raising is 11 years. So Jerry is still very grateful to Haas. You must know that although he was reborn with memories, he had no ability to protect himself when he was a baby. On the streets of New York at midnight, apart from the homeless, the office workers who work overtime and return late, and the young people who like nightlife, it is rare to see other people. Oh, and of course, there are criminals who love to do their crimes in the dark, of course. And, lurking in the night to fight criminals, superheroes. Thief. Catch the thief. In the silent night, suddenly there was a woman's anxious cry for help. Lucy, a tabloid reporter, had to work a few extra hours tonight because she had to organize material for tomorrow. Unexpectedly, as soon as I got out of the subway, I was accidentally hit by someone. With rich experience, she immediately checked her satchel and found that the satchel had been scratched and the wallet inside had disappeared. So there is this next scene. Although it was discovered in time, how could a professional woman in a suit and high heels run away from a thief who was known for his escape speed? Helpless, she could only call for help, hoping that some kind-hearted person on the side of the road could help stop her. It's a pity that there are not many people on the street at this point, and the only few people just chose to watch with cold eyes. Because no one wants to be stabbed a few times by him when he goes up to stop the thief. Just as Lucy watched the thief's back drift away and was about to disappear in her eyes, a strange smoke suddenly appeared and enveloped the thief. A moment later, when she arrived panting, the smoke suddenly disappeared, leaving only the unconscious thief who stole her wallet and the pink wallet in his hand. It's almost 3 o'clock, we're almost going back. After taking down a street thief again, Jerry checks the time and decides to wrap up his first hunt for the night. Not bad, he cracked down on 4 crimes in one night. Although they were not big, they earned him close to 200 little red stars. In the middle of the night in New York, there are countless crimes, large and small, visible and invisible. It's just that because Jerry doesn't have a good means of transportation, the current range of activities can only be near the community where he lives. In addition, he lacks a method to quickly find criminal incidents, so the efficiency is not too high. He thinks he is lucky to find 4 in one night. It's a pity that he doesn't have Superman's ears, and he can hear nearby crimes anytime, anywhere. At 7 o'clock the next morning, Jerry woke up instinctively from sleep. Since he has a certain ability to take care of himself, If there is no accident, Jerry will get up on time at 7 o'clock every day. Over the years, it has become his instinct. Turning over, putting on his clothes and shoes, he opened the door and left the house. Of course, going out early in the morning is not to go to fight for righteousness and earn a little red star, but to run and exercise every morning. The muscles in his body didn't grow out of thin air, they were slowly practiced through various exercises every day, accumulating countless sweats. Good morning, Jerry, back to running. Good morning, Grandpa George. Still in the elevator, Jerry ran into an elderly neighbor who lived next door and liked to take a walk in the morning. For a child who gets up early and goes out for a run at the age of 4 or 5, it's hard not to be impressed. Besides, he will be very polite and help you throw away the trash and pick up things. Kindness, positivity, optimism, politeness, helpfulness, outstanding achievements, love of sports, these labels are the impression Jerry has brought to all the neighbors around these years. It was also a source of distress for many children in the neighborhood, including other children throughout the building. 40 minutes later, Jerry returned home covered in sweat. 10 kilometers in the morning is what he has to do every day now, but because he is not yet an adult, his legs are not long enough, and he often earns a little red star on the road, so it will take a little more time. Otherwise, with his current physical fitness, he can run 10 kilometers for nearly 30 minutes. Throwing all the changed clothes into the washing machine, turning on the automatic laundry button, Jerry started his daily morning brushing and taking a shower. 10 minutes later, he changed into his home clothes again, tied on a scarf, and walked into the kitchen. Thanks for watching, subscribe and support my channel.